to Tapped Out, hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine, only on the BetQL Network.
And a good Saturday evening. We appreciate you checking us out wherever you are on the BetQL Network with Brendan Tobin and my producer, Jake Noaker. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine, and we're going to talk a lot of fighting, some UFC, a little bit of boxing. Not much of a fight being put up right now by your Miami Heat against the Boston Celtics, dude. Down 25 points in the first half. What up?
I mean, they couldn't take care of the ball at all in the first quarter. I think they put up like 13 points. It was abysmal offense. And then, Boston's so talented, they're going to get hot because they actually had pretty clunky first quarter themselves. And you just can't keep, shooting yourself in the foot, giving them chances. So it's looking bad right now.
Yeah, all three judges right now are favoring the Boston Celtics to win this one. Speaking of fights that end by decision, nobody had Ryan Garcia over Devin Haney in the big boxing match last Saturday night. Now, I say nobody. If you did, congratulations, because that ticket made you a lot of money. Ryan Garcia to win the fight made you a lot of money. If you had him to win by the cards, it was 16-1 at BetMGM. How surprised are you that the fight went the way it did?
I mean, very, very surprised that he ended up winning a decision against Devin Haney. Like, if you would have told me the least likely outcomes going into that fight, that would have been the one. Like, I thought the odds reflected that well. If you would have told me that he would have caught him with a knockout, yeah, I would have been pretty surprised just based on how he was acting. But, I mean, look, this man seems like a master mind and troll and all this, and we discussed that in the lead-up, is like, do we believe this? Is it all a disaster? Or is this an act? What is this from him? And it seemed like everything was very much played in the right way. Devin Haney's camp, didn't have like these clauses that he had in the Gervonta Davis camp of having to make a certain weight. And so, I mean, he looked 3 weight classes bigger than Devin Haney in that fight, which, definitely panned out when it came to the power shots. And honestly, Sean probably should have had a knockout in the middle of that fight.
Do you think it says maybe we overrated Devin Haney? Does it say that the weight mattered that much? Does it say maybe we underrated Ryan Garcia a little bit? Like, what do we make of that fight? Because now that it's a week removed, I'm still stunned that happened. Like you said, if Ryan Garcia would have knocked him out, and he knocked him down a couple of times, I wouldn't be shocked. Of course, he has that capability. But everybody that watched that Tank Davis fight, he was getting beat up. Right? Like, yeah, he ultimately ended up taking the liver shot and going down and getting the KO. He was going to lose that fight. He dominated last Saturday against Devin Haney. I actually am of the mindset that maybe Ryan Garcia is kind of good.
Yeah, no, listen, he definitely showed, first of all, I think what he showed is he's a wild man. He's a wild fighter. He's got tremendous hand speed. I think that, we've seen plenty of, we've seen plenty of guys who are a little bit wild out of the cage, and when they get, or wild out of the cage, wild out of the ring, and they get in that ring and they can just execute. And I think Devin Haney, I think overrated is probably a little bit. I mean, there were some pretty crazy comparisons of saying, he was going to be maybe the next heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather. And, that very clearly, he just, the thing with him is he just couldn't hit Ryan with anything. I think you could probably mention that one punch, that left hook that he had in like the 3rd or 4th round. And then other than that, really just couldn't deter him, couldn't bother him. Ryan really didn't respect it and just had these spurts. And once that left hook hit, and he hit him immediately in the first round with it, he was in a dangerous spot.
The obvious question now is what's next for Ryan Garcia, because he's 25 years old, and most of the time, guys that young, superstars, especially from the YouTube era, if you will, they don't usually fight names like Gervonta Davis, let alone back-to-back against Devin Haney. Now that you're fighting the biggest names possible, who's the name that comes to mind next?
Yeah, it's a great question. He's been doing a lot, no surprise, a lot of chatting this week, and it appears like the one that interests him the most is taking on Errol Spence, because there appears to be some kind of beef with Derek James, who's his trainer. Yeah, that'd be a monster fight. I mean, Errol Spence is kind of sitting here. Terrence Crawford has moved on to greener pastures. So if he's looking for, a bounce back fight, that's obviously one more big money fight for Errol Spence if you want to do that. I don't think the Tank Davis fight's going to happen soon. He's got a fight coming up in June in Las Vegas against Frank Martin. And I think one thing that you will see is, look, if Ryan's going to fight him again, he's not going to fight him again with that rehydration clause. So, I think that would be the only way you could get a Tank versus Ryan Garcia too. But obviously, there's a lot of juice there, and they did great business. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't know if we'll see it soon.
What do you make of the boxing crossover talk with him fighting the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley? Both those guys obviously have a huge, huge following. They've had each other's names in their mouth now multiple times. And now that Ryan Garcia's name is white hot and O'Malley's a champion, you want to talk about making money. It feels like Dana, he's done it before back in the day with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. You're shaking your head.
There's one issue. He's represented by Oscar De La Hoya. And, I just don't think Dana White in any shape or form is going to do anything that makes Oscar De La Hoya money, let alone giving him one of his fighters, and probably is going to have that fighter lose. So that to me is the biggest issue. Could we see it one day when Ryan Garcia is free of Golden Boy? There's been contractual disputes and spats between them. Yeah, that maybe one day, but I don't think it's anytime soon.
Let him box on the undercard. All right, De La Hoya would beat him up in a boxing ring. I'm just saying, come on, that would be so much fun. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine on a Saturday night, talking a little fighting and making a little money right here on the BetQL network. Let's keep talking a little boxing. A bunch of big fights coming up on the horizon. May 4th, of course, Cinco de Mayo weekend. Canelo almost always fights. He's going at it with Jaime Munguia, plus 425 for the underdog. Canelo's minus 600. I love Canelo Alvarez, and he is one of the faces of boxing of this generation. Is he still a minus 600 good?
Well, probably against Jaime Munguia, I can understand that, because he's not he's not going to evade Canelo Alvarez. And usually if you go into a fight where there's a couple of brawlers, like, Canelo is going to get the better end of that. Usually when we say who's going to give Canelo Alvarez problems, it's usually a guy who is, got the better, slicker skill set, a la a Dimitri Bivol, a Floyd Mayweather, Andy Lara, on Austin Trout. So I think that's probably about right. Munguia, this is his big come up. But the thing that's a little bit, of a downer to everybody for Canelo is, to your point, he is probably one of the faces of boxing still, yes, but probably fighting like the fourth most interesting fight that everybody wants to see. We want to all see him fight David Benavidez, or we want to see him fight Terrence Crawford, and he doesn't seem really keen on anything. And look, he's fought a lot of names in his career. He's fought Gennady Golovkin a bunch of times. He's fought Floyd Mayweather. He's fought, and gone up to big weight classes. So I don't want to pile on his career. He's had a great career, but when you are the face of boxing and you see all the young guys doing it right now, and Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis and Devin Haney, well, why can't the face of Tyson Fury is going to, fight all these guys? Why can't the so-called face of boxing go in there and fight one of the fights that we want to see? And his reasoning just seems kind of lame, because it's like, well, David Benavidez, what do I get out of that? Okay, David Benavidez is too big? Fine. Why won't you fight Terrence Crawford? Well, he's too small. I won't get any credit. It's like, well, all right, so you're just going to be in your little Goldilocks land of what's just right, but what's just right is the least interesting.
You're describing, as you're talking, Manny Pacquiao. He was the same way, picking and choosing, and then he got a big fight, and then he would fight a Jeff Horn, and then, okay, I'm finally ready to fight Floyd Mayweather. Wasn't it kind of the same thing for him? That's, again, why you have to go back to Ryan Garcia and give him credit, because he could easily slow roll this thing. He could fight a bunch of dudes that nobody's heard of, make a bunch of money, sell out arenas, and then 3 years from now fight Tank Davis. He did that a year ago, and now he's fighting Devin Haney, and now he's talking about Bud Crawford. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know if the Pacquiao comparison's a great one for him right now, just because I know Pacquiao was, coming off the Marquez knockout and all that, so it was kind of a slow roll after the whole Floyd chapter was closed and whatnot. But it's just, for me right now, I just think with Canelo, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to fight Bivol and avenge that? No. Okay. Do you want to fight David Benavidez, have the super fight? No. All right. I'm going to give a nice fight. Hey, two Mexican fighters, Cinco de Mayo weekend. It's going to be entertaining. I don't think it's going to be a boring fight. I think these guys are going to come and bang and slug it out, but it does have a little bit of a feel of all right, well, but what are you going to do after this? Like, what is the next real case? And the thing with Canelo is he has a huge guarantee of money. So if you remember in the lead up to this fight, like he broke off from Premier Boxing Champions, and then like he was going to go back with another promoter, and then he went back to Amazon for this fight. So it's like everybody else is kind of feeling the same way too, I think, who know they have to fork over a lot of dough to get Canelo in the ring.
There's another guy coming up fighting in May 18th for the heavyweight title that we've also got questions about. Is he still in his prime? Of course, I'm talking about the Gypsy King Tyson Fury taking on Usyk, and Usyk is slick, and Usyk is athletic, and Usyk right now is the favorite to win the fight. And I got to tell you, I'm not that surprised. I think a lot of people remember the last time out for Tyson Fury, obviously getting in there against Francis Ngannou, and we all think Ngannou won the fight. And then we saw what happened the next time Ngannou went into the ring, and it didn't work out well for him. So it's easy to look at Tyson Fury and go, okay, by my fight math, maybe he's a little bit on the back end of his career. You've pointed out a million times that maybe he wasn't taking it too seriously. And even by Tyson Fury standards, he was a little pudgy, let's just say. I don't know if you've seen recent photos of him. Dude looks jacked. Like, he looks like he's ready to fight Usyk tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like a little bit of, hey, if you are still down him, okay, that's fine. But I'm not going to overplay it too much with Usyk, just because I do think that Tyson Fury has shown, man, the guy's got great skill. He knows how to use his size. Yeah, he definitely went in there with Francis Ngannou and took it light, and he paid the price. And it was very embarrassing. It got even more embarrassing after what Anthony Joshua did to Francis Ngannou. That's not enough for me to stay away from this fight and not bet on him. I mean, he's not really in a lot of danger fighting Usyk to lose by knockout. He could lose a decision, but I think that if you ask me between his size, the ability to use to not really be in as much danger as AJ was, I think I'd still put my money on Fury going into that one.
Also in May, man, May is a loaded month for boxing, as usually is. This summer is going to be crazy inside the ring. Vasily Lomachenko steps back in against George Ferocious Kambosos. That one for the lightweight title. I don't really know where to put my money on that one. What say you?
Yeah, that's a big one for George Kambosos because
Huge.
he's coming off of two. He's coming off the losses to Devin Haney, and had this crazy upset where he beat Teofimo Lopez and got the championship, and then to his credit, didn't duck anybody. Went like right. He was supposed to fight Lomachenko originally, then the Ukraine situation and war happened, so Lomachenko left, and they went to the Devin Haney thing, and so they had the two fights with him. So this is getting back to an original matchup. I'd still lean Lomachenko though. He's very, very dangerous. Very elusive. I think he's going to frustrate George Kambosos. And I love George. I've gotten a chance to speak with him a bunch of times when he used to train down here in South Florida. But I think this one's a little bit too much of a mystery for him to figure out.
Yeah, that jab from Lomo is tough to figure out. And then in July, we've got a couple of other fights. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. And then is Masvidal Diaz, is that in the 305? Where's that one going down?
No, I think it's in L.A. It's in L.A.
Is it?
I was surprised by that, too. I thought they would have put it down here. Or I thought it would have either been in Stockton or I thought it would have been in Miami, and it's in neither. It's in Southern California.
Of course, this one being
weird,
a rematch of... It is weird. It's the original BMF fight. I'm down for it, though, because a lot of times it feels like when we get these fights after, it's 3 years, 5 years. I mean, Nate Diaz, I think at some point is going to be back in the UFC, and Jorge Masvidal is, a year removed from his retirement. So both these guys still can throw hands, obviously. I think I like the underdog in that one, Nate Diaz. Why is Masvidal such a heavy favorite?
I mean, he beat him. That's one thing, and it's not like it's not like Nate Diaz looked fantastic in his matchup against it. But yeah, it is a little bit weird. Like, these guys get to go do this, and it was interesting with Jorge on the show last week. He was like, "Well, I got basically a deal with the UFC where if I get to do boxing, I promise I'll come back and fight." So that was pretty interesting. With Miami being now on the annual stop block, I'd imagine he's going to make his return probably next spring in the UFC. It sounds like.
All right, we get out of the boxing ring and step into the octagon. Coming up next, we're going to talk some UFC with Dylan Rush from Rush MMA as he joins the show. Appreciate you checking us out. It's Tapped Out right here on the BetQL Network.